know who exports 66% of the world's flowers and who stole 20% of his territory, but not from his neighbors, but from the sea? Do you know where is the birthplace of capitalism and who created the first multinational corporation and the first stock exchange in the world? And who invented the first stock market scam long before Wall Street and cryptocurrencies? Do you know who created the first wind-powered sawmills and built the largest merchant fleet in the world on that invention? And most importantly, do you know who made carrots turn orange? You're right, the Netherlands. Windmills, tulips, bicycles, wooden shoes, cheese and cannabis have become symbols of the Netherlands, especially among tourists. And tourists also like red light district. I really don't know why, I've never been there. In the Republican period, which began in 1588, the Netherlands entered a unique era of political, economic and cultural greatness, which placed it among the most powerful and influential states in Europe and the world. This period is known as the Dutch Golden Age. What made this extraordinary success possible? The Dutch territories often changed masters. In 1579, the Union of Utrecht was formed, the forerunner of modern Netherlands, which fought for liberation from the Spanish in the 80 Years' War. Protestants were especially represented among the skilled craftsmen and wealthy merchants of the port cities of Bruges, Ghent and Antwerp. As a result of the Spanish conquests of those cities, all Protestants in the conquered cities were ordered to either convert to Catholicism or move out of the then leading ports. Many of those who moved north settled in Amsterdam, turning what was a small port into one of the most important trading centers in the world. That valuable human capital enabled significant economic progress through the development of agriculture, trade and shipbuilding. Protestants brought with them their own work ethics based on Calvinism, which promoted frugality and education. This contributed to the lowest interest rates and the highest literacy rates in Europe. The abundance of capital made it possible to maintain an impressive stock of wealth, embodied not only in a large fleet but also in abundant supplies of a range of commodities that were used to stabilize prices and take advantage of profit opportunities. Smart, huh? Several other factors also contributed to the flourishing of trade, industry, art and science in the Netherlands at this time. A necessary condition was the supply of cheap energy with the help of windmills and peat, which was easily transported by canals to the cities. The invention of the wind-powered sawmills made it possible to build a huge fleet of ships for trade around the world and for the military defense of the Republic's economic interests. At that time, the colors of the Dutch flag were white, blue and orange after Prince William of Orange, who was the main leader of the Dutch rebellion against the Spanish in the 16th century. In 1937, the orange was changed to red. Reason? Better visibility of the flag at sea. Fun, isn't it? In the 17th century, the Dutch, traditionally skilled seafarers and keen map makers, began trading with the Far East, and as the century progressed, they gained an increasingly dominant position in world trade, a position previously held by the Portuguese and Spanish. In 1602, the Dutch East India Company was founded. It was the first multinational corporation financed by shares. This is how Ambrose Bierce defined the corporation: an ingenious device for obtaining individual profit without individual responsibility. The Dutch East India Company gained a Dutch monopoly on Asian trade, which it would held for 2 centuries, and became the world's largest commercial enterprise of the 17th century. The Dutch East India Company and then the Dutch West India Company established colonies and trading posts around the world. Spices were imported in bulk and brought huge profits thanks to the efforts and risks, but also the high demand for these goods. This is remembered to this day in Dutch proverb pepper door, expensive like pepper, which reflects the prices of spices at that time. To finance the growing trade in the region, the Bank of Amsterdam was founded in 1609 as a forerunner, if not the first true central bank of a country. Although trade with the Far East was the most famous of the exploits of the Dutch East India Company, the main source of wealth for the Republic was trade with the Baltic states and Poland. The Dutch imported huge amounts of resources, like grain and wood, stockpiling them in Amsterdam, so that the Netherlands would never run out of basic goods, as well as being able to sell them for profit. This meant that, unlike its main rivals, the Netherlands would not face the dire consequences of bad harvest and the famine that followed it, but would profit when it happened in other countries. Geography also favored the Dutch Republic, contributing to its wealth. They took advantage of their location, halfway between Seville and Lisbon, and the Baltic ports, which were too far for direct trade. This enabled the Dutch to provide themselves with profitable intermediation. They transported salt, wine, cloves, and later silver and spices to the east, while bringing Baltic grain and fish to the west. They also had access to German territories across the Rhine River. And outside of Europe, the Republic also prospered. The Dutch East India Companies not only monopolized the spice trade, but their ships also controlled the seas of the world. This was largely against the wishes of England, which envied the economic success of the Republic. Although both fought against the Spanish during the 80 Years' War, the two countries were on opposite sides when the Netherlands took over a large colonial empire that eventually led to the Anglo-Dutch Wars. The creation of the colonial empire was accompanied by brutalities toward the local population, as well as the active participation of Netherlands in the slave trade. Amsterdam's dominant position as a trading center was strengthened in 1640 by the Dutch East India Company's monopoly on trade with Japan through its trading post in Dejima, an island in Nagasaki Bay. From here the Dutch traded between China and Japan and paid tribute to Shogun. Until 1854, the Dutch were Japanese' only window to the Western world. New Amsterdam was a Dutch settlement founded in early 17th century on the southern part of Manhattan Island that served as the seat of colonial government in New Netherland. The fort was meant to defend the Dutch West India Company's fur trading operations on the Hudson River, and legend has it that the island was purchased from the local natives for $24. That is for some trinkets worth about $24. In 1664, the English took over the colony without firing a shot and gave it a new name, New York. Sound familiar? The year 1672 is known in Dutch history as the year of disaster and the end of the Golden Age. The Dutch Republic was simultaneously at war with France, England, and three German city-states. At sea, they were able to successfully prevent the English and French navies from entering the western coasts. However, on the mainland, Netherlands was almost conquered by the French and German armies coming from the east. It managed to turn the tide by flooding parts of the Netherlands, but it was never able to regain its former glory and fell into a state of general decline in the 18th century, with economic competition from England and internal instability. Many economic historians consider the Netherlands to be the first fully capitalist country in the world. In early modern Europe, the Netherlands had the richest trading city, Amsterdam, and it had the oldest full-time stock exchange that had been trading since 1602. The inventiveness of merchants led to the establishment of pension funds and insurance companies, as well as the phenomenon of inflation and the birth of business cycles. The world's first stock market speculator, Isaac Lemaire, wanted to carry out his cunning plan as far back as 1609. He began selling shares of the Dutch East India Company on the stock exchange to drive prices down, with the idea of buying them back with discount. However, the state intervened in the story, because of which Isaac experienced great financial losses and had to withdraw from Amsterdam.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Tulip mania took place in the period from 1634 to 1637. Bulb prices for some new and modern tulips have reached extremely high levels. The greatest acceleration in prices began in 1634, and then the prices fell dramatically in February 1637. It is generally considered to have been the first recorded speculative bubble in history, which is attributed much more to then unknown social psychological than to economic reasons. It had no critical impact on the prosperity of the Dutch Republic, which was one of the world's leading economic and financial powers in the 17th century, with the highest per capita income in the world from 1600 to 1720. The Netherlands has been a parliamentary constitutional monarchy since 1848. In addition to the Netherlands itself, the kingdom also includes several Caribbean islands and the territories such as Aruba, Curacao and Saint Martin. The country has a tradition of social tolerance, which has legalized abortion, prostitution and human euthanasia, while maintaining a liberal drug policy. The Netherlands is ranked among the first in international indices of press freedom, economic freedom, human development and quality of life, as well as human happiness. In the Netherlands there is freedom of religion, and at the same time there is freedom from religion. About 52% of the population declares that they do not belong to any religion, and only 14% go to church regularly. That is why we can find churches that have been converted into something else, such as this bookstore in the town of Zwolle, which certainly tells us about the Dutch sense of practicality. The total gross national product of the Netherlands for 2023, according to World Bank, is estimated to be $1,118 billion, which places the Netherlands in 17th place in the world. GDP per capita at the same source is around $57,000, which makes the Netherlands the 11th richest country in the world according to that parameter. The Dutch rank first in the European Union and second in the world in terms of the value of agricultural exports, just behind the USA. In 2021, agricultural exports were worth 105 billion euros. A significant part of the Dutch agricultural exports is flowers, with Dutch export accounting for 2/3 of the world's total flower exports. The most popular flowers are, of course, tulips, and that is what Netherlands did for all of us that love flowers. The Dutch love cheese. Gouda cheese is considered their invention. Even though they eat a lot of cheese, the Dutch are also one of the healthiest nations in the world. The reason for this may be the fact that they are the nation that is most involved in sports and physical activity in all of Europe. The Dutch love to ride bikes. The Netherlands has 22 million bicycles for its 17.5 million inhabitants. Dutch men are the tallest in the world, with an average height of 183 centimeters. Dutch women are the second tallest in the world after Latvian women, with an average height of 169 centimeters. I also noticed that Dutch women have very long legs. The Dutch women field hockey team has won 9 out of 15 world championships. Men are more into football. They were 3 times in the finals of the World Cup, but without success. They won the European Championship once. Johan Cruyff is considered the 5th best football player of all time, and Marco van Basten and Ruud Gullit are also in the top 50. The jerseys of national team in different sports are mostly orange, regardless of the color change on the official flag, which we mentioned before. Orange is the color of the Dutch royal family, and legend says that in honor of them, Dutch farmers managed to change the color of carrots. Back in the 10th century, carrots were white, orange or purple. As orange carrots grew very well in Dutch climates and environments, the Dutch were able to grow the orange carrot in huge quantities and spread it all over the continent to the point where orange carrots simply became the standard. So no magic behind this, just hard work. Netherlands also has famous painters: Hieronymus Bosch, Rembrandt van Rijn, Johannes Vermeer, Piet Mondrian, and the most famous, the man who cut off his own ear, Vincent van Gogh, who loved to paint sunflowers and the starry sky. The Dutch called themselves Nederland, which literally means low countries. The Netherlands is a country with an extremely low altitude and flat topography, with only about 50% of the land above 1 meter above sea level, and about 26% of the territory being below sea level. Most of the areas below sea level, known as polders, are the result of land reclamation that began as early as the 14th century. To protect them from floods, a series of water defenses were built. In the first millennium, villages and farmhouses were built on man-made hills called terps. Later these hills were connected by embankments. In the 12th century, local government agencies began to emerge. Their job was to maintain water levels and protect the region from flooding. These agencies still exist. As the ground level lowered, the embankments grew out of necessity and merged into an integrated system. By the 13th century, windmills came into use to draw water from the areas below sea level. Windmills were later used to drain the lake, creating the famous polders. That explains why there are so many windmills in the Netherlands. They help them survive, and there are more than 1,000 of them scattered all over the country. A polder is a low country that is kidnapped from water and protected by dams and embankments. A polder is created by building embankments around the wetland, then digging canals next to the embankment and pumping water out. In this way, this soil dries out. Because of this, the soil settles and its level is always a little lower than the water level around it. In 1932, the so-called enclosure dam was completed, which blocked the former South Sea from the North Sea and thus created Lake Ezel. It became the part of a larger unit called the Zuiderzee, in which 4 polders with a total area of 2,500 square kilometers were pulled out of the sea. The American Society of Civil Engineers declared the Zuiderzee works, along with the Delta works in the southwest of the Netherlands, one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. All the dams, dikes, canals and pumps made the water flow through the Netherlands, not over the Netherlands. The Dutch like to say, God made the world, but the Dutch made the Netherlands. And it can be said that they are quite right. I hope you find this video interesting and of some value for you. Please excuse my Tarzan English and please like, share and subscribe.